Hi everyone, my name is Bryan Ouellette. I'm in Moncton, New Brunswick, and I'm a lead for STEM in the Anglophone East School District. I'm glad you guys are all joining us today for the brand new PASCO Weather Sensor. I'm excited to talk to you about this sensor today and what its capabilities are and what it's been doing for me and what I've been using it for. So before we actually get into the nitty-gritties of everything, let's talk about the actual physical features of the sensor. So the front of the sensor, as you can see, it's hard to see on the camera, so I included the image that you can see below. The power button is here, but you'll also see that there's a battery meter, tells you when it's on or the battery is starting to run low, your GPS indicator, and then the Bluetooth marker. As indicated here, this sensor does have GPS built into it, and I have to say that it is very accurate and super functional with the things that we are trying to do now. And it's a great addition, actually, to this weather unit. On the bottom of the sensor itself, you'll see that there's the tripod mount, and it comes with this tripod accessory that allows you to connect your tripod to the sensor. So this is the tripod accessory that it comes with, and you can see that all you have to do is simply put the weather sensor onto it, and then it screws onto your tripod. Now this is a beautiful feature because what it allows you to do is mount the sensor onto your tripod and leave it in that location if you so choose to gather that data. It also allows you, if you are out in the field, to mount the sensor and maybe get some more accurate readings if you're testing for wind speed or wind direction and those sorts of things. So it's a great feature to have. On the back of the sensor, you'll see a few things. Number one is the charging port, so the USB micro charging port, which beautifully hidden behind this silicone cover for protection, which I think is an added bonus. And then you'll also see here the mount where you can put the weather vane accessory onto the weather sensor. So I'll put those two things together now. One of the great things is with that accessory attached to it, you get very good wind direction, and it's an added bonus to that kind of wind speed, wind direction. Are we getting gusts from all directions? So I think that's great. So I'll mount that up onto my tripod over here, so it's easy for you guys to see. Now, the beautiful thing with this sensor is, it includes 17 different sensors. So it's not just one sensor. It includes 17 different things that you would want to collect doing weather or at any given time if you so choose. Barometric pressure, humidity, and amongst a bunch of other things that we'll see here in a second. As I mentioned, it does have that GPS tracking. Now, the GPS tracking, again, I'm going to get into this a little bit later, and I know I'm teasing you with that information, but I want you to stay till the end. So, it does have the built-in GPS, and I'll show you how that works later on, but it gives you that extra bonus to your data and a little bit more accountability when getting data as well. Another thing it has is a internal data storage system, which means what you can do is now take this unit in the field with you without having to take a device. It also means that if you want to gather data over a long period of time, you don't need a device. You can simply set up the sensor, and as they used to say, you can set it and forget it. So connecting the sensor is quite simple. So I'm going to back out of here real quick and bring you into the SparkView app. So this is SparkView here. The beautiful thing is all you need to do is turn on the sensor, as I mentioned before, with the power button. You're going to see the lights turn on, the 3 LEDs in the front, and then the GPS and Bluetooth are going to blink together, which means I'm ready for connection. In the SparkView app, whether you're on a tablet, on a handheld device, or on a computer, you simply go to the Bluetooth connection here, and you'll see the weather unit appear. So here it is here, and I simply just have to click and it's going to connect. The reason why I want to show you this before moving forward is it does include all of these wonderful sensors within it. So what that means is that as a given unit, it shouldn't be taken just for face value, because you would think, oh great, it's just one thing. No, it has all of these capabilities built in within it. And not to say that, excuse me, not to say that you have to collect every piece of this data every single time. You can choose to collect whatever data from whatever sensor you want at any given time. And then you can choose how you want to represent that data. Now, the one problem with doing this webinar inside is that because of this concrete and steel building, the GPS is not very accurate and sometimes may not function depending on where I stand in the building. So what I've done is I've taken it out into the field. I've done some recording with it so that you can see it live and in action. So I'll show you that video now so you guys can see what it looks like when it's out in the field. So let's just open up that video.
Hi there, Bryan from New Brunswick, bringing to you the brand new PASCO Wireless Weather Sensor. This sensor is jam-packed with a bunch of very different sensors that you can, when you're out in the field, test and compare. You can see here that I've added the accessory of the weather vane fin to give me the directionality of the wind. Now, the beautiful thing about this sensor is not only could you carry it in your hand if you want to do some various testing at different altitudes or different GPS locations, but it also comes with this mounting point where you can add it to a tripod. So I have a tripod with me here, and you can see that when I mount the weather station onto the tripod using the mounting bracket here, you can see as the fin starts catching some wind, it starts to spin. Now this gives you not only the directionality of the wind, but a true and accurate reading of the wind speed. Now, like I said before, this station has so many different sensors built in, including the GPS sensor. This GPS sensor gives you such an accurate altitude and longitude, latitude reading that it's unreal. Now the potential for that is also magnificent. The comparisons that you can make here, I'm currently standing approximately 5 kilometers away from the airport where we do our weather readings. So I've been comparing the data that I've been getting from this weather station to the airport's weather station, and let me tell you that it is bang on to the point. So this is amazing. Now, not only does it have a GPS, but it is a wireless, so you can connect to it through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, through your laptop, your handheld, or your tablet, doesn't matter whatever you're using. It has some pretty decent range to it. So currently the weather station is connected to my laptop, and it's probably a good 50 feet away. So that's not a bad range, and later on I'm going to test to see what that range is to see when it actually does cut out. So I'm going to set my weather station up here just on its tripod and let it get some more data. We'll go back inside and take a look at that data and how it's working.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of that data. So I'll head back over to the SparkView app, and we'll take a look at some of that recorded data that I did with that weather sensor. So remember what I said before is there are 17 included sensors within this weather station, and at any given time you can choose what you wish to display or gather. In this situation, you can see that my graph is showing me the wind speed as well as a direct time or direct speed here on the side. You can choose to show that information as a table as well to compare whether or not does your temperature change based on the wind chill factor, or does the humidex change. And you can see here that we can start making those comparisons, and I have a graph compared next to a table of values. So that data can be captured, like I said before, through connected via a live feed from the sensor to a tablet, to a computer, to a handheld, through the internal storage unit that's in the weather sensor, so you can do some manual data collection. So I created another video, and I know what you're thinking. We're full of videos today. So I created another video just to show, oops, I don't want to press that button. I created another video just to show what in the field what data collection would look like. So let's take a look real quick at that data collection, and then we'll get back into some more information.
All right, we've talked about how many sensors are jam-packed into this brand new PASCO weather unit. But let's talk about how we can collect data using this unit. In my mind, there are three ways we can collect data. The traditional way, which means that I need to have a laptop or a handheld or a tablet nearby to collect and record that information into the SparkView app. But if you're like me, on site, here next to a creek, you don't want to leave your tablet or your laptop outside all night, or maybe even you don't want to carry it with you. If that's the case, that's the beauty here is that PASCO has integrated a data logger into this weather unit. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when I set this unit to start collecting information, it will collect it and store it internally, which means that I don't need to be nearby and I don't need to leave my laptop or handheld outside all night. All I need to do is let it collect its information, connect it when I'm done, and download the data that it's collected. How fantastic is that? And then there's method number 3. And method number 3 is manual data collection. So if you don't want continuous data and you want simple moments in time, well, we call that manual data collection. So what you do is in the SparkView app, we're going to go into a manual data collect, and we're going to just simply take the weather unit, connect, and then using the SparkView app, take that picture in time. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to go ahead and take 3 various locations here on the property to see if the altitude changes and to see if there are various or differences in my data. But here's another piece of information that is interesting. Because there's a built-in GPS system in the weather unit, I can map out my locations. So using the SparkView app, I load the map and I can see a satellite view of where I took those key pieces of data. I can then compare them or simply click on them to get more information. I know, super cool. So let me go ahead and take my 3 pieces of data that I want to collect around the property. We'll go back inside and I'll show you exactly how to see the GPS location of the manual data that I've collected using the PASCO weather unit.
All right, I know what everyone is thinking. You should have wore that hat today because the lights are reflecting off your head. No, I'm kidding. Hopefully nobody's actually thinking that. But I know what you're thinking. This is absolutely amazing. If you weren't thinking that, you should be thinking that. And here's why. So the integration of an internal data logger into this unit now allows you to make it more portable. Portability, what does that even mean? Well, number one, if you're a classroom teacher and you want this device to be in the hands of the students, but you don't necessarily need them to walk outside with an iPad to collect that data. You can have it be collected internally. Also, what does that mean? You need data. You can't have a tablet or something set up with this all the time. So you set it up for internal data logging, you set up on a tripod outside, and there's your data collection. That's the beauty with that internal data logger. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you so excited about this internal data logger? Well, I'm not just excited about that. I'm excited about all of the features that come in it. For example, the GPS. Let me show you what that GPS looks like. So I'm going to go to that manual data. Now, one of these is day 1, day 2. However, one of them does not have the map for me ready. So let's go into this manual data that I've collected. Let's not go into the manual data that we collected. All right, we're in the manual data. And we're looking at the map. And let's choose temperature. Not the right map. Let's try a different one. All right, let's try a different one. Let's go to my typical weather sensor, and I'll just upload a new map while we're there. So what we want to do is we want to look at those GPS points. What is the purpose of those GPS points? I know that's what you're asking. Well, what is the purpose? You, as a classroom teacher or as a aficionado of meteorology, you can choose to go out and gather this information and then compare where that data came from. So I'm just going to real quick in SparkView set it up so you can see here. I'm going to choose the GIS system, which is this little image, looks like a globe with a GPS marker on it. And I'm going to choose that map. So here's the map. I'm going to select my measurement and I'm just going to say temperature. And now we're going to see a point appear. So all we need to do now is start zooming in. And as we zoom in, we start seeing the data. This is all of the information that we've collected in these different runs. And each one of these points is a clickable point, which will give you the information based on that data that you collected. Now you can see here, I was not very mobile. I stood in one location. But if you moved around, so if your students were moving around, you wanted them to go to the soccer field, then you wanted to do the play park, and you wanted them to go to the parking lot while there were no vehicles moving, or in any location, you could take that data and you can see that on the map and then compare that information. It allows you to display it in a different way. You could also say, if you went to a nature park on the weekend and you brought this weather sensor with you and you decided I'm going to collect some information at various points, then you can have your students then compare them on the map. You can even have them determine where you are. There are so many possibilities here. I don't need to come up with all of them for you. But the point, again, is that the data that you're collecting can then be used in multiple ways. Of course, the traditional way, which shows you graphs, it shows you data tables, but also putting it up on that GIS, which allows you to see your position and see the data that's collected at that position. That's a key piece there as well. Now, there's something else I wanted to share here. I had a group of students who, as we were working with this weather sensor, asked me a question. And their question was, could we take a shower? Well, I obviously told them that they could, but that was not the point of the question. They wanted to know if they could take a shower with this unit. Also questionable on my answer. However, the point of their questioning was they wanted to test the humidity in the bathroom as they took a shower. That became very interesting to me. They were asking questions such as, is the fog on the window related to the amount of humidity in the room? Does the humidity grow exponentially? Is there a correlation? Anyways, the questions kept coming. So we did a test, and I created a video. I know, you guys are probably getting tired of these videos. However, I'm sure you didn't want to just join me in the shower here live on this webinar. So let's go hop in the shower in the video. Now, I'm sure most of you took a sigh of relief. You can all look back at the screen. I'm not actually in the shower. What I've done here is I set up the weather sensor in a bathroom, closed windows, closed doors. You can see my baseline data. What then we did is I started up the shower and let it run over time. Now, this video has been sped up. It's probably a 10 to 15 minute actual time span. But for the sake of this webinar, I have sped it up. So you can see here that the humidity in the bathroom itself is gaining. And I know where you're wondering is, wow, there's a lot of dips in this data. Number one, I'll tell you here, this little bump at the bottom is a flushed toilet. I know what you're wondering. Wow. No, exactly. I thought the exact same thing. This second bump right here, which drops down, was actually user error. The weather sensor was actually sitting on the laptop, so it was gaining some heat and temperature, and then we moved it a bit away. So it kind of dropped in humidity based on location, so that's dropped. After that, everything else is very credible. So you can see that the data is growing, and that's obviously because the shower is running, and the humidity in the bathroom is also increasing. Now, the other question that they were actually asking me, not during the shower experience, but after we had collected the first round of data. What they wondered was, Well, we are told by our parents to, open the window when we're taking a shower, if there is a window, or turn on the fan to keep the humidity out of the room, and so on and so forth. There's always these, solutions to why your mirrors are fogging up. So we ran a second test, and this is the second test with actually running data. And what we wanted to do here at the end was open the window and open the door once we've reached a peak humidity percentage. So you can see that the data starts reaching its peak percentage, and I'm going to let you decide if you know when the windows are open. So I'll let you just keep watching this for a few more seconds, and I'll let you decide if you can see when that window gets opened. So there it is. There it is. You can see that the window and the door have been opened. The temperature dropped dramatically. The humidity dropped drastically. Unreal. What a cool test. Brought this data back to the students, showed them this video, and obviously we shared the data file with them as well so that they could compare the data over time. So we'll bring you into SparkView so you can see what that looks like there. So this is the shower data that we took for the shower test. So you can see again that we put it in and we took a reading every second. We could have changed that obviously to do a different reading at a different interval. That's the other beautiful thing about this sensor, is that you can change the interval at which it reads the data or collects the data. So the students obviously took a look at this to determine where that spike or what that actual highest percentage was, and then of course tried to determine when that window was open. Now I know what you're wondering, Brian, show us this data on that GPS location. No chance. Just kidding. We're not going to the GPS location for this one. We don't need to see my bathroom on the GPS. All right, my last little piece here before we shut things down is that interval piece that I was talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the sensor to, let me make this full screen. I'm going to connect my sensor back to SparkView. Oh, I already am, sorry. And what I want to show you is this little button right here. So this is where we can create our data logging piece. Now, the data logging piece allows you to choose at what sample rate you want to take information. So I can choose 10 seconds, I can keep going up. Now, what it also tells you is how long this sample rate will work for. So if I go up to 30 seconds, I have 11 hours worth of data. So that's 11 hours worth of data that you can either do overnight, during the day, whatever it might be. So that's how much data you're collecting. Now you can also choose each sensor. So if I want to do the weather sensor, if I wanted to change the light sensor to a different time interval, the compass, and the GPS. So whatever it is that you so choose, you can change those sample rates, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, what I wanted to show you here, the final piece is that connection. So you can see that I'm ready to start my sample rate. I'm going to click OK. Now my screen tells me you are now logging data in its memory. So the two lights here on the sensor itself are actually flashing. The GPS and the Bluetooth are flashing simultaneously to tell you that it's collecting information. So here we go. So in this mindset, how does this work? So again, as I mentioned, you can set it up outside, let it collect information over time. Maybe you just want your students to go outside for a quick run around the park to see what the temperature is outside and those types of variables. You essentially can choose what you want to use that internal storage for. So for the sake of us being inside, we're not going to gather much change in information. So I'm going to be the wind. All right, so I just wanted to do that to release some hot air, but also to give it some information so that when we look at that data, we'll have a little bit of a spike instead of just seeing a straight line. So what I'm going to do is now go back to my SparkView app. I'm going to go to the Bluetooth. I have to stop it from data logging real quick. you'll see that the sensor reappears. And now what I want to do is download that information. So as I get into this connection with the sensor, let's try that again. As I connect to the sensor, it's going to ask me, oh, you've collected some data. What do you want to do with that data? So you can see your options down here. Oh, I don't want to connect. I want to delete my data, or I want to retrieve my data. So I'm going to go ahead and retrieve that information. It's going to download it to I'm using the computer, so I'm going to download it to my computer, click OK, and then boom, here's my information. There's not a lot of it because we're inside. So let's see what we have for wind speed. So you can see here on this simple graph where I decided to blow into the anemometer to show some wind speed. So as simple as that, the data was collected at 1 hertz. It showed you the information, and then it instantly graphs it for you. I can then choose to add more pages, add more types of graphs. I can even go to that GPS piece and add those on later on. So that's kind of that great information there. The last one that I had talked about but didn't talk much about it was the manual data piece. Let's go back. Sorry, I'm going to go in here. So in the manual data piece, you can collect data manually, which means that you've chosen the information that you want to collect, and you have. Oh, I just had a critical shutdown. So you can choose the information that you want to collect and how you want to collect it. So basically, you go into your SparkView app once again. We'll reconnect. So what you can then do is choose locations that you want students to go and collect data from. So for example, here, I went to the river. Now, my data is a little bit skewed because I was I was connected to my laptop so that I could do a screen recording with it. So I was actually doing a screen recording. I was not actually doing manual collection of data, which means my information here is not correct. But nonetheless, you can get the understanding. So I was by the river and I took some data. I then went to the mountain, I took some data, and then I was by the road and I took some more data. So what that means is that your students, if you're a teacher, you can take your students and say, I want you to take the weather sensor and I want you to go outside and from these following 10 locations, or choose 5 locations. And they can do that. They can do it using a handheld device, whether it's their cell phone or an iPad. You go outside with the device connected via the 2, and as you go, you say, click, I want a piece of information. I would like to take a piece of information from here. So that's essentially how that works. So if I did it here, you can see the difference with my computer is because we are connected. I'm going to click the check mark here. And what I would then do is take this sensor, obviously, and I would go to the mountain with my laptop in tow at this point, but with my handheld or my iPad, and then I would then click the check mark again. And I would just keep going. I would just keep walking around and find a new location. So what that means is you now have different pieces of information from these different locations that you can compare, whatever it is that you're looking to compare. So that is my overview of the new weather unit or weather sensor from PASCO. You can see that there are so many built-in features to it. It holds so much power and so much potential as well. Not only is it used as a weather station, but it can be used as so much more, as a handheld device where you can do the internal storage to it with the weather vane fin added to it for more directionality. There's so many things you can do to it. I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this webinar, and I hope it actually gave you some information about this sensor, and I truly encourage you to take some more, gather more information and look into it, because I do think that this is a great unit for you to use in a classroom setting, or even if you're just into meteorology and if you want to take some data collections around your area. So thank you once again. My name is Bryan Ouellette from Moncton, and hopefully we'll see you again at another webinar.